Covering a huge area of about 59,947 square kilometers, Lake Victoria is the largest lake on the African continent and is also the biggest tropical lake in the world. It is one of the African Great Lakes, and after Lake Superior in North America, it is the second largest freshwater lake on Earth. The waters of Lake Victoria occupy a shallow depression and are centered around the East African Rift System. Lake Victoria is the largest inland lake in Africa and the largest tropical lake in the world. Covering a surface area of 68,800 square kilometers, this great African lake is located in east-central Africa and lies nestled in an ancient basin on the borders of three countries, Tanzania, Uganda, and Kenya. The mighty lake lies in a shallow depression between the western and eastern Rift Valley and is made up of several archipelagos that are shared between the three countries. The two most stunning attractions in the Lake Victoria Basin are Rubondo Island National Park, which is the largest island park in Africa, and the Ssese Islands, which is spectacular archipelago made up of 84 islands. Lake Victoria supports a thriving fishing and agricultural industry as well as a busy transport industry. Agricultural activities include coffee, maize, tea, and coffee farming on either a subsistence or commercial level. There are 500 recorded fish species in Lake Victoria, including the infamous Nile Perch, which is an invasive species that was introduced in the 1950s. A tour of Lake Victoria appeals to nature lovers and outdoor enthusiasts. It's also an opportunity to learn more about the people of Lake Victoria. The Great Lake is conveniently located to the major safari game reserves in Tanzania and Uganda and is the perfect add-on destination for people who travel to those regions to see the gorillas or the annual wildebeest migration. Lake Victoria was discovered by John Hanning Speke in 1858 on his famous quest to find the source of the Nile, along with his travel companion Richard Francis Burton. Speke named it Lake Victoria after the reigning Queen of England. At the time, Speke caused much debate in the scientific community by claiming Lake Victoria was the source of the Nile River. Its existence was confirmed by the Welsh-American explorer Henry Morton Stanley, who at the time circumnavigated the lake and reported the great outflow was at Ripon Falls on the northern shore of Lake Victoria. Prior to Speke's arrival, Lake Victoria was well known to the Arab traders who explored the inland routes in search of gold and ivory as well as sourced slaves from the region. An ancient map of the lake has been discovered and dates back to approximately 1160 AD. The coastline of Lake Victoria covers an area of 5,180 square kilometers, 2,000 miles. It's incredibly diverse, ranging from 90-meter high cliffs and dense papyrus swamps at the delta of the Kagera River to the flat and barren shores of the Channel to the Gulf of Kavirondo and Wainom Gulf. Lake Victoria is famous for a group of islands known as the Ssese Islands. This incredible archipelago is made up of 84 islands and is located in the northwestern part of Lake Victoria that falls within Uganda. Lake Victoria is moderately shallow and its volume of water is less than other Great Lakes in Africa, which have a considerably smaller surface areas. As much as 85% of the water that fills Lake Victoria is provided by rainfall and about 15% of the water is lost to evaporation. Kagera River is the largest river that flows into Lake Victoria. Two rivers flow out of the Great Lake, White Nile or Victoria Nile and Katanga River. Victoria Nile leaves the lake at Ripon Falls near Jinjia and flows in a northern direction for 500 kilometers. After it falls over Murchison Falls, it flows into Lake Albert and onto the Albert Nile. This is the last part of the river in Uganda before it enters Sudan. The only river that flows out of Lake Victoria is the famous Nile River. In terms of contributed water, Lake Victoria is the primary source of the longest branch of the Nile River. It's estimated that Lake Victoria formed over 400,000 years ago. The surface area of Lake Victoria is about 800 square kilometers, 26,600 square miles, and it has a 440 stretched shoreline. In total, there are over 3,000 inhabited islets in Lake Victoria. In terms of volume, Lake Victoria is the 9th largest continental lake in the world. It contains approximately 2,424 cubic kilometers of water. Lake Victoria has a maximum depth of between 80 to 84 meters, 262 to 275 feet, and an average depth of 40 meters, 130 feet. Lake Victoria's surface area is divided among three countries: Kenya, 6%, Uganda, 45%, and Tanzania, 49%. The only freshwater lake that is larger than Lake Victoria is Lake Superior in North America. According to geological studies, Lake Victoria has dried up completely a few times. The last time was over 17,300 years ago. Uganda operates two major hydroelectric dams on Lake Victoria to generate hydroelectricity. Lake Victoria supports the largest inland fishing industry in Africa. Fish species harvested in Lake Victoria included indigenous species such as tilapia and haplochromine cichlids, as well as foreign species such as Nile perch, silver butter catfish, elephant fish and marbled lungfish. Nile perch was introduced in the 1950s to boost the fishing industry, and this has caused huge problems as the species is extremely invasive. At its peak in the early 1990s, 500,000 tons of Nile perch were harvested every year in Lake Victoria, but this has declined significantly in recent years due to overfishing. In May 1996, the ferry MV Bukoba sank in Lake Victoria. At least 1,000 people lost their lives in this ferry disaster, making it one of the worst maritime disasters in Africa's history. Lake Victoria also goes by the names of Lake Nyanza, Namlilve, Lugo, and Nyabaale, Luganda. There is an increasing trend in Africa to revert back to the native name for the Great Lake. Approximately 30 million people live in the Lake Victoria Basin. The world is extremely concerned as the Great Lake faces several critical environmental issues, including an overgrowth of water hyacinth, overfishing, deforestation of the island forests, and water pollution. Lake Victoria is marketed as the Pearl or Pride of Africa. It's one of the greatest lakes in the world and is renowned for its spectacular beauty, lush tropical islands, and beautiful beachside hotels and resorts. There are over 200 fish species in Lake Victoria, which makes it a sought-after destination for a fishing tour in Africa. The number of tourists visiting Lake Victoria has increased over the years because the region is benefiting from improved infrastructure and an increase in investment in the hospitality industry. You'll find a wide selection of accommodation in the Lake Victoria Basin, ranging from rustic fishing camps to private resorts, safari lodges, and modern hotels. Lake Victoria is also rich in history and has a substantial number of heritage sites as well as a significant archaeological site. The vast network of islands are home to incredible bird species, which makes the lake region a birder's paradise. Lake Victoria spreads out over the borders of Tanzania, Uganda, and Kenya, and is close to Serengeti National Park in Tanzania and other world-renowned safari destinations in East Africa. It's a popular add-on destination after a Big 5 safari tour to the Serengeti and the other famous game reserves in East Africa. You can combine a holiday to Lake Victoria with a once-in-a-lifetime Serengeti safari tour in Tanzania or a gorilla tour in Uganda. If you can't get to the impenetrable forests in Rwanda or Uganda for chimpanzee trekking, you see a visit Ngama Island on the Uganda side of Lake Victoria. The 100-acre island is a protected chimpanzee sanctuary. Hundreds of thousands of travelers visit Lake Victoria every year, despite the fact that certain media sites will tell you it's one of the most dangerous destinations in Africa. Here you have to look at the travel data, or lack of them, and decide for yourself if a holiday in Lake Victoria is worth it. Swimming in Lake Victoria is not recommended, but you will see locals and international visitors swimming in the Great Lake. The main worry about swimming in Lake Victoria is the risk of contracting bilharzia. There are also large populations of hippo and crocodiles in the lake. Fishing is one of the highlights of a trip to Lake Victoria, but again, it's important to know a vast number of people lose their lives as a result of boating accidents and drownings. There are a few reasons for this, but extreme weather and boats capsizing are the main causes. This dreaded tropical disease is transmitted through bilharzia-infected snails. The medical term for bilharzia is schistosomiasis or snail fever to the locals. Schistosomiasis is common in the majority of large lakes in Africa. Bilharzia is not immediately fatal like malaria, but it causes very unpleasant symptoms. It can be life-threatening if the parasite lives in your body undetected or treated and causes irreparable damage to your organs. The first symptoms of bilharzia are severe abdominal pain and diarrhea. Over a period of time, more serious symptoms will occur such as infertility, enlargement of the spleen, protruding stomachs, and organ failure. Bilharzia is easy to treat, but it can go undetected if you mistake the common bilharzia symptoms for something else. If you swim in Lake Victoria, it's a good idea to go to a doctor when you return home and have bloods taken to test for the parasite. It's estimated that about 5,000 people die every year from water-related accidents in Lake Victoria. This is due to a combination of extreme weather patterns, inferior fishing boats, and people not being strong swimmers. The weather conditions on the Great Lake can go from mild and pleasant to torrid and life-threatening in a matter of minutes. Strong winds whip up high waves that can make you feel like you're on a boat in the middle of the ocean in a storm. The strong winds also push the boats onto rocks. Windy conditions are worst in the months of June, July, and August. Lake Victoria is home to large populations of hippo and crocodiles. They are both highly dangerous and responsible for hundreds of fatalities every year in Africa. A fishing trip in Lake Victoria is safe as long as you take the usual precautions to prevent a tragic boating accident or drowning. The most important thing is you should only book a fishing trip in Lake Victoria through a reputable operator who has a reliable, seaworthy boat and years of fishing experience on the lake. The majority of boating accidents in Lake Victoria go unreported, and usually it's a tragic case of local people being caught out on the lake in extreme weather and in boats that are unseaworthy. Other causes of deaths on Lake Victoria include overloaded boats, engines not strong enough, drunken sailors, negligent ferry operators, impaired vision at night, lack of policing and regulations, and passengers not wearing life jackets. The islands of Lake Victoria are the main attractions, and the majority of travelers visit the Great Lake region for a combination of outdoor activities. The choice ranges from fishing and boat cruises to hiking, walking trails, mountain biking, and birdwatching. Of course, many holidaymakers visit Lake Victoria for a lovely beach holiday at one of the many hotels and resorts along the lake shoreline. The Ssese Islands is an outstanding archipelago which is made up of a collection of 84 densely forested islands. They form the Kalangala district. The Ssese Islands are divided into two main groups. Bugula Group in the southwest region, named after Bugula Island, which is the largest island in the archipelago. Kum Group in the northeastern region, named after Kum Island, which is the largest in that group. The two island groups are separated by the Kum Channel. If you're planning a holiday to Lake Victoria, these four islands are popular options. Bugula Island is the largest island in the Ssese archipelago. It covers an area of some 270 square kilometers. It's the most developed island in Lake Victoria and is easy to get to by ferry, which is located at Lutoboka Bay. Kalangala is the main town of Ssese Islands and is located on the eastern end of Bugula Island. There are two ferries that transport people to Bugula Island and back. The most popular ferry runs from Nakiwago Dock, located south of Entebbe, to the ferry dock at Kalangala. The second ferry runs from Bukakata, located near Masaka, to the ferry dock at the town of Luku. Bugula Island has an incredible array of wildlife and many interesting bird species. Bunda Island is a small island that operates as a private leasehold. There is a well-kept campsite and budget lodge on the island and loads of things to do on the island. Apart from relaxing on the sandy beach, popular activities include trolling for Nile perch in a kato or speedboat, canoeing around the whole island, strolling through the rainforest, and birdwatching. There is bilharzia in the waters surrounding the island, but because there is no community living in close proximity, the likelihood of picking up the parasite is extremely low. Bulago Island, not to be mistaken for Bugula Island, is a small island that covers an area of about 2 square kilometers. It has 6 kilometers of sandy beaches and its rugged shoreline is made up of low cliffs and rocky outcrops. The northeastern tip of the island is covered in by a lush rainforest. Bulago Island is popular for sailing on Lake Victoria. You can hire small sailboats and windsurfers from the lodge on the island. You can also have a lot of fun water skiing and tubing. The island is small, so you can enjoy a leisurely hike around the whole island or take a stroll to the rainforest to bird watch. Bulago Island is a birder's paradise. Ngamba Island has grown in popularity as a place to visit in Lake Victoria because it's home to a protected chimpanzee sanctuary. The sanctuary was founded in 1998 to care for orphaned chimpanzees that were rescued in Uganda from poachers and wildlife meat traders. It's a small island that's approximately 40 hectares in size and is totally covered by a lush rainforest. It's a birder's paradise with over 120 bird species and is home to an interesting array of wildlife. The best thing about visiting Ngamba Island is you get to see the chimpanzees in their natural habitat. The chimps are kept in a secluded area for their safety but roam freely in the forested section. Visitors need to provide proof that they are up to date with their vaccinations to prevent the spread of diseases from humans to the primates. Guests stay in self-contained safari tents in a well-maintained camp that overlooks the Ssese Islands of Lake Victoria. Rubondo Island National Park is located in Tanzania in the southwestern portion of Lake Victoria. The national park is made up of the famous Rubondo Island and a collection of 11 smaller islands. Rubondo Island National Park covers an area of 456 square kilometers of land and water surface area and is known as the largest island park in Africa. It's one of the most popular tourist destinations in Lake Victoria, particularly wildlife enthusiasts. Rubondo Island is home to a wide array of animals, including elephant, giraffe, chimpanzee, bush buck, bush pigs, and the Shisuni antelope. Bird life on Rubondo Island is prolific with about 400 recorded species on the island. Rubondo Island is also home to the rare and highly endangered Sitatunga, which is an amphibious antelope that hides and camouflages itself in the thick marshes around the lake. An amphibious antelope can live on both land and in shallow waters. Rubondo Island is mostly covered in thick rainforests with open patches of woodlands, papyrus swamps and pristine sandy beaches. The island park is popular with travelers who love outdoor adventures. Things to do on Rubondo Island range from hiking and walking safaris in the dense forests to canoeing, fishing, birdwatching and of course, lazing on the beaches. Rubondo Island National Park is a protected wilderness area, which means certain rare and endangered animal and bird species have thrived in island rainforests. This includes the black and white colobus and chimpanzees. Ruzinga Island lies in the eastern corner of Lake Victoria and falls within Kenya. It's a long elongated island that is 16 kilometers long and 5 kilometers wide. What makes Ruzinga Island famous is the extraordinary presence of rich and important fossil beds that date back some 18 million years. In 1948, an expedition party collected over 15,000 fossils from the Miocene. This includes 64 primate species known as the Miocene apes. Ruzinga Island Lodge is the most popular place to stay on Ruzinga Island. Guests can enjoy fishing, boat cruises, hiking, mountain biking and a selection of water sports. Ukerewe Island is the largest island in Lake Victoria and the largest inland island in Africa. The island park is an archipelago which is made up of 27 smaller islands. The islands are all inhabited by local people except for 3 that are uninhabitable. The Nansio people are the largest community who live on Ukerewe Island. The island people live off what they catch in Lake Victoria and small-scale farming. Historic sites on Ukerewe Island include Kagunguli, an old Roman church built in 1895. Bukindo, a chief's palace built in 1922. A school and dispensary built between 1902 and 1913 and is still in use. Irondo Point is a popular tourist attraction on Ukerewe Island. It offers a 3-way spectacular view of Entebbe in Uganda, Mwanza City in Tanzania and Nairobi in Kenya. Things to do on Ukerewe Island include fishing, canoeing, cycling, hiking or walking and taking a cultural tour of a local village. Mfangano Island is located on the Kenyan side of Lake Victoria and is most famous for its ancient rock paintings. They are believed to have been painted by the Bantu Pygmies of Uganda, who were the earliest inhabitants of the island region. The rock paintings on Rubondo Island are thought to be between 1000 and 4000 years old. The site itself is both revered and feared by local inhabitants, which means the paintings have been left untouched. There are two principal sites on the island, a cave close to the water known as Mawanga and a rock shelter found further inland called Quitone. The tropical islands highlighted above are the main attractions for a trip to Lake Victoria, but there are other popular places to visit while on holiday in the region. Kakamega Forest National Park is located about 50 kilometers from Lake Victoria. It is located northwest of the Nairobi, the capital of Kenya, and near Kenya's border with Uganda. The national park is covered in dense tropical forests, which are the last remnant of the ancient Guineo-Congolese rainforest that once covered vast swathes of Africa. It covers an area of about 230 square kilometers and is renowned for its incredible biodiversity. Unfortunately, overpopulation, deforestation and overgrazing threaten this extremely valuable tract of forest. Less than half of the endangered tropical forest remains a protected indigenous forest. It gained its national forest status in 1985. What makes the Kakamega Forest unique is its extremely wet climate. The region receives up to 1700 millimeters of rainfall every year. Kakamega Forest National Park boasts a spectacular array of rare trees, including the Elgon teak and the red and white stinkwood. There are over 60 species of orchids in the forest, of which 9 species are only found in those forests. Bird life in Kakamega Forest National Park is prolific. It's home to over 365 bird species, including the rare West African great blue turaco and white and black casqued hornbill. There are 9 bird species in the national park that are not found anywhere else in the world. Other vulnerable species found in Kakamega Forest National Park include the African clawless udder, giant African water shrew, tree pangolin, blue and red-tail monkey and the de Brazos monkey. Leopards have been seen in the Kakamega Forest, but the last sighting was in 1991. Unique insects found in the national park include the Goliath beetle and the pink and green flowered mantis. The southern section of Kakamega Forest National Park is the most accessible area for tourists. Things to do in Kakamega include forest walks, hiking, primate tours, bird and butterfly watching and village tours. Tours to visit the most photographed tree in the forest, Mamamdare tree, as well as the Crying Stone, are also popular. The National Botanical Gardens of Uganda are located in Entebbe on the shores of Lake Victoria. The lush gardens were laid out in 1898 by the first curator and are divided into different ecozones. This includes a stunning tropical rainforest zone. The lush tropical gardens are home to an array of monkeys and squirrels as well as 115 bird species. This includes the African fish eagle, Angola swallow and the Diedrich cuckoo. A number of popular annual events take place at Botanical Gardens Entebbe, including the Mileage World Music Festival, which is held in November. The Botanical Gardens Entebbe are easy to get to from the main international airport. Uganda Wildlife Conservation Education Center is the longer name for the Entebbe Zoo. The protected wildlife sanctuary is located a short 15-minute drive from Entebbe International Airport. The center cares for orphaned and rescued animals that are victims of the bushmeat trade as well as deforestation. The center tries to release as many of the animals back into the wild, but many of them remain in the care of the center and act as ambassadors to educate visitors on the plight of Uganda's wildlife. Thimlichohinga Archaeological Site is located northwest of the town of Migori in the Lake Victoria Basin. It is a dry stone-walled settlement that was built in the 16th century. It served as a protective fort for communities and their livestock until the mid-20th century. The important archaeological site lies just south of Ruma National Park. This small, relatively unknown national park in Kenya is known as the last retreat of the roan antelope. It provides sanctuary for the only indigenous population of the rare and highly endangered roan antelope in Kenya. Entebbe is located in central Uganda and lies close to the northern shores of Lake Victoria. The busy city is approximately 45 kilometers from Kampala, the capital city and largest city in Uganda. Most travelers fly into Entebbe International Airport and travel onto their accommodation in Lake Victoria with a private charter plane or take a ferry across to the island. Popular things to do while staying in Entebbe include a visit to Uganda Wildlife Education Center and the Entebbe Botanical Garden. You can also do a day tour of Ngamba Island Chimpanzee Sanctuary from Entebbe. The city of Mwanza is the major port on Lake Victoria in Tanzania. It's the economic hub of the Great Lake region, and the bulk of what the area produces passes through the industrial harbor. This includes harvests from tea, cotton, and coffee plantations. The majority of the inhabitants of Mwanza are the Sukuma, which is the largest population group in Tanzania. They live simple lives subsisting off subsistence farming and fishing. Mwanza is a good place to stay if you want to visit Rubondo Island National Park, which is located fairly close to the city. Kisumu is the largest lakeside city in the Lake Victoria region on the Kenyan side of the Great Lake. It's a vibrant lake port and famous for its busy markets that line the city streets. The city has been left largely untouched by commercial development, so it retains much of its traditional cultural heritage. The town of Musoma is located in northern Tanzania close to the Kenyan border on the shores of Lake Victoria. It's the administrative capital of the Mara region and is rich in history. You'll find a number of German heritage buildings which were used as government offices. The Mwalimu Julius K. Nyerere Museum houses an exhibition of records that document the early history of Tanzania as well as the rise of nationalism and the independence movement. If you're staying in Musoma, you can take a boat trip to one of the nearby islands in Lake Victoria or book an overnight stay at one of the island lodges. The most popular thing to do in Musoma is a trip to Matvilla Beach. It's known for its striking granite boulders and festive lakeside bars and restaurants. The Great Lakes spreads over the borders of 3 countries, so you have a wide choice of places to stay in Lake Victoria. Accommodation in Lake Victoria ranges from luxury beachside resorts on the islands to rustic camping spots on the beach. Here is a list of the top 5 hotels in Lake Victoria that you can trust for a wonderful tropical island holiday. Rubondo Island Camp is the only tourist accommodation available on Rubondo Island National Park. The luxury beachside camp is located in the southwestern section of Lake Victoria that falls within Tanzania. Guests stay in modern lakeside cottages and enjoy a wide choice of outdoor activities. This includes walking trails, boating, fishing and safari tours in the dense island forests. Bird life is spectacular in and around the camp, which makes Rubondo Island Camp a popular holiday destination for avid birdwatchers. Ruzinga Island Lodge is a popular beachside lodge located in a remote and unspoiled corner of Ruzinga Island. The island lies on the Kenyan side of Lake Victoria. Guests stay in thatched cottages with spectacular views of the lake and enjoy an array of outdoor activities. This includes fishing, boating, canoeing, mountain biking and water skiing. You can also book a day tour to an important archaeological site on the island where thousands of fossils have been uncovered. Mfangano Island Camp is located on the western shores of Mfangano Island in Lake Victoria in a section of the Great Lake that falls within Kenya. This exclusive beachside camp is private and only sleeps a maximum of 12 guests. A stay at Mfangano Island Camp is usually sold as an add-on option to a safari tour in Kenya. It's a 40-minute flight in a charter plane from the Masai Mara and a 15-minute boat ride from the airport to Mfangano Island. Victoria Forest Resort is located in Kalangala, which is the main town of Bugula Island, the largest island in the Ssese archipelago. The resort is conveniently situated about 1 kilometre from the ferry in Lutoboka Bay. Victoria Forest Resort is situated on a 3-kilometre stretch of beach and offers guests a wide selection of outdoor activities. This includes walking trails in the Lutoboka Forest, mountain biking, bird watching and beach games. There's a swimming pool on the property for adults and one for kids. Brovod Sands Lodge is a luxury guest lodge located in Kalangala on Bugula Island. It's a popular beach lodge for travelers on holiday in Lake Victoria and offers guests a host of outdoor activities. The lodge has a gorgeous swimming pool if you're nervous of swimming in Lake Victoria and an in-house spa treatment center. Ferries are the most popular mode of transport in Lake Victoria for both locals and tourists. The main ports on Lake Victoria are located at Kisumu in Kenya, Mwanza in Tanzania, Bukoba in Tanzania, Entebbe in Uganda, Port Bell in Uganda, Jinja in Uganda. It's highly recommended that you book your holiday to Lake Victoria through a reputable tour operator. Book a popular Lake Victoria tour which should include transport arrangements to fly in and out of the Lake Victoria region and ferry rides where needed. Lake Victoria has a tropical climate which is typically warm and pleasant throughout the year. This makes Lake Victoria a year-round destination. Lake Victoria has a short rainy season in November and December and a long rainy season from the middle of March to early June. The peak tourist season runs from July through to February. The beach resorts and hotels in Lake Victoria charge a higher rate during the peak season, and flights to and from the international airports close to Lake Victoria are more expensive in the busy tourist season. The low tourist season is from March to June. This is when you can pick up reasonably priced accommodation in Lake Victoria, and flights to Lake Victoria region are generally less expensive in the quiet tourist season. Lake Victoria is a high-risk malaria region. The swampy shorelines of the Great Lake are the perfect breeding ground for malaria-carrying mosquitoes. It's highly recommended travelers take anti-malaria tablets for a holiday in Lake Victoria and the usual precautions to prevent being bitten. Yes, there is bilharzia in Lake Victoria. Bilharzia is present in almost all large lakes in Africa, and is strongly prevalent in shallow reedy waters in close vicinity to villages. Bilharzia occurs and thrives in waters that are contaminated by human faces. Poor sanitation in the lakeside fishing villages is the main reason why bilharzia is still such a big problem in the Lake Victoria Basin. Bilharzia is easy to diagnose and treat. However, if left untreated, bilharzia can cause long-term and irreparable damage to your organs. You will travel to Lake Victoria through Uganda, Kenya, or Tanzania. The same visa requirements for the East African Community, EAC, apply for a holiday to Lake Victoria. The EAC is the regional intergovernmental organization of the republics of Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, and South Sudan. Speak to your travel agent or consult the official websites for Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania for information on visa and passport requirements. Lake Victoria is located in eastern Central Africa and spreads across the boundaries of 3 countries. Most of Lake Victoria lies in Tanzania and Uganda, and a smaller section lies in Kenya. The area of Lake Victoria is shared by the African countries of Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda. About 49% of the lake falls under Tanzania, followed by 45% in Uganda and about 6% in Kenya. The lake has a catchment area of about 169,858 square kilometers and is the chief reservoir of the Nile River. Thank you for watching this video.